There's a lot of questions on the gear you need to get started into three guns. So today I'm going to talk quickly about holsters. This is a Phobos holster, paddle holster. This is what you'll find at Cabela's or Walmart. A lot of big box stores have them. The positives on this that we can say is it has this retention. You can adjust how tight the gun is retained. The downside is it's a paddle holster. If it's got this on it, the issues, they can very easily get pulled out with the holster, or the whole gun and holster can flop out when you're running and land on the ground. So in most rule sets, that's a disqualification. If it's not a disqualification, then you at least have to pick it up and it slows you down. It's one more thing to worry about when you're starting off in the sport. So not ideal, but if you have that, go out to a match. Maybe talk to the match director before, let them know, and but that will probably work for you as long as you're kind of conscious of what of pulling that out, not having it pop out. The next would be something like this: double layered Kydex holster. This one, your belt would weave through it. The positives: it does stay attached to your belt, and most of them have really good retention. This is the holster I started with the Glock 23, and it holds the gun really well. Takes a little effort to get it out, but you need a good tug, which is not a bad thing in this sport. So there's a lot of these floating around. Every town has 5 guys bending up Kydex to make things like this. So this would be a good option, especially if you have one around already from being out at the range or taking classes. The last is what most people would consider kind of a standard 3-gun holster. So this one has the active retention that goes over the top. It has the thumb screws here that you can adjust how tight it retains, despite the thumb screw or the retention. So until you press that button on the back, the gun cannot pop out. So that a lot of people are going to the active retention. It has a hanger. This is an Invictus Practical hanger to kind of drop and offset it, get it away from your body a little bit, and then the ELS fork to so you can pop it on and off real quick. It's a Weber Tactical holster. A couple other companies make those, but this is a pretty good option. This is what a lot of people go to. We do a lot of dynamic things in the sport. You're climbing over things, you're climbing under things, going prone, running. So that's a good option for that, because regardless of what you do, until your thumb hits that button to knock the active retention off, the gun cannot fall out. If you don't have this starting off with, that's fine. If you have one of these other options, then you're good to go. The one caveat we see at a lot of matches, the Serpa holster by Blackhawk. There's some controversy around that, but there's a number of matches and match directors that will not let you use them. Certain ranges have rules against it. The issue with that, if you're not familiar, it's active retention, sort of like this, except that to release it, it would have like a button right around there. The issue then is you hit that button, you pull the gun out, and your finger is already kind of over the trigger guard area, and it can go in and hit that button. You'll find a lot of people who have used them for years and years and years and never had problems. You'll also find a lot of stories of people having NDs from that. If you don't own one of those already, I don't know that I would go out and buy one. I'd kind of encourage you not to. If you have one, just talk to the match director or the range wherever you're shooting. There are ways to disable the button. The match that I run, we disable the button so that they don't need to press it to pull it out, make sure the retention's tight enough. But yeah, you don't want to necessarily go out and buy one of those. But if you have one, talk to the match director. We don't want to discourage anyone from coming out, but we also don't want to set any situation up that could be dangerous. So the big thing, looking at these holsters, and I'm sure there's other designs. There's leather holsters. There's a ton of different ones. These are kind of the more common modern day examples. The 2 keys is, the first is that retains the gun in the holster well. We're going to be moving and shooting and doing a lot of dynamic actions that if you don't have a real good holster, that gun will pop out, and if it's loaded, that's very dangerous. If it's unloaded, that still can be an issue. So the holster has to hold the gun without flying out. We also want the holster to stay attached to our belt. So like I said, if you don't have something like this starting off with, don't worry about it. Most likely you will end up with something close to that, maybe without the active retention, but something similar to that. If you have one of these, awesome. This is a great starting point. You can pick them up pretty inexpensive, 40, 50 bucks, I think, or even cheaper possibly, depending on your local market. And obviously this could work. It's not ideal. Talk to wherever you're shooting. Talk to the local shooters. There's people. Most shooters have extra holsters laying around. They'd be happy to bring you out so that you can use. And if you do have any questions that I've not answered in this, please feel free to comment, send me a message on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or wherever you find me, and I'd be happy to answer that for you. And I hope to see you out in the range.